Hello, everyone. My name is Cat Oriel with Forbes Breaking News, and today I'm here with Rep. Mike Collins of Georgia. Thanks so much for joining me today, Congressman.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course. So we're here today to talk about your new legislation, the Laken Riley Act. And I know a lot of us are probably familiar with the story by now, but for those who are just now hearing about this, can you tell me a little bit about Laken Riley and why you decided to introduce this bill in her honor?
Well, she was a young lady that had attended the University of Georgia as well as the Augusta Medical School down at University, and was on her way to a very, successful career in nursing. And someone who loved jogging. She lived in the Athens area there on the campus at UGA, out jogging one afternoon, and an illegal alien out of Venezuela attacked her and brutally murdered her. And he has been arrested. And so we have held a moment of silence for last week on the House floor. I'm not dropping this. We've been calling on local officials to resign. They need to resign. If you're going to act like a sanctuary city in the state of Georgia, which is illegal, but you're going to do it anyway, then you made that bed, you need to lay in it. And they need to resign. We've called on Mayorkas, who's been impeached. They're responsible for these policies at the Biden administration of allowing these people to invade our country. And he needs to go ahead and quit. I would not have left my home the next day if I were either one of those men without a resignation letter in my hand. But we're not dropping it there. Our next step is what we're doing now with the Laken Riley Act, which just simply states a sense of Congress acknowledging that the failure of Laken's death was due to Biden administration policies and the failure to use them. And the second step of it is to lower the threshold. Right now, there's a threshold in which local officials can contact ICE to come and pick them up. And we're just lowering that down because this man had been arrested in New York previously. He left that sanctuary city and then came down to the sanctuary city in Athens, Georgia on the list, and kept his criminal, I guess, escapades going. And so he had gotten arrested for shoplifting days before this incident. And shoplifting is not on there, even though Athens was, Clark County, however, was not complying with contacting ICE. It was not one of the part of the threshold crimes that do that. We're lowering that, adding things like that in there. The third thing that we're doing is allowing states to take the Secretary of Homeland Security, take them to federal court, sue them when they're not doing their job. In this case, when they don't pick up for injunction, to make them stop and start picking up these people and let's deport them, get them out of our country.
So the second part of the bill, when you say ICE should be able to lower the threshold in order to detain them, what would then happen to that migrant once they were detained by ICE? Would they face deportation?
Well, if it's my options, yes, ma'am. They would find deportation very attractive and get rid of these people. But right now they're detaining them until they can adjudicate them. And this would have been one person that was off the street that wouldn't have been out there when Laken was out there jogging.
Sometimes when tragic events like this happen, some might push back and say politicians are politicizing this issue, using the tragedy to advance their agenda, or in this case, villainize all migrants. So I'm curious what your response is to this bill, because I'm sure you received some of that pushback. And in that vein, did you consult her friends and family first and get the blessing from the UGA community to make sure this bill was thoughtful and exactly what they wanted?
Yeah, I've been in contact with the family for a number of days. When we did the moment of silence, we wanted to make sure that it was exactly the way they wanted it, and I have been in contact them with this act the Laken Riley Act that we're putting through to make sure that there was something that they were comfortable with that they'd like to see done. And I think the number one thing they told me was they want to make sure that this doesn't happen to anybody else. It's devastating. It's something I couldn't imagine me going through. And if this act can help save one person by doing that, I have no problem. You can call it politics all you want. It's no problem with it. But what we're going to do is solve a problem. In this case, it is a political problem. And, so if it's defined as politics, I'm okay with that. We're still going to push this.
Mhm. What's the likelihood of the legislation passing at this point? Have you heard from Democrats if they're likely to support it?
No, we haven't. We haven't been back in session. As a matter of fact, this thing is fast tracked. We dropped it late last week. It's already in the Rules Committee. They should hear it tomorrow. This will be on the floor Thursday for a vote. And I expect it to pass the House, and we'll send that thing right on over to the Senate.
Mhm. Well, I saw you go back and forth a little bit on Twitter with Senator Chris Murphy, who, claimed there's no crime surge caused by migrants, 100% made up, a right-wing invention. And so obviously you countered that and mentioned Laken's death and that. So
Yeah.
I'm curious how you're approaching working Democrats on this issue when there's just a basic disagreement of facts, if there even is an issue.
Well, there is an issue. And clearly, the American people are speaking very loud and clear. Uh, I, you know, Athens is home to tens of thousands of young people whose parents sent them to that town thinking that it was safe, that is a good place to send your child to school, and not knowing that it was a sanctuary city. And part of the problems that we have with these immigrants coming in here, these illegal immigrants, is they're bringing their criminality with them. And if lowering the threshold on what we can hold and detain these people is going to help, then by all means, we need to be doing everything we can. Because right now, we've got a war on two fronts. We've got a war on that southern border down there with an invasion of people that are coming across at any point, anywhere they can and want to. And the second war that we have front is out here in the country with people like this fella who is just committing crime at will and then moving on because there's no consequences. And we need to sink some teeth into this stuff. We need to get these people prosecuted, and then we need to send them back where they came from.
Well, I'm wondering, some people might hear that and wonder why Republicans in the House took issue with the Senate bipartisan border bill, and say there was something in front of you there. So what was your reaction to that bill, and why did you choose not to support it?
That wasn't a bill. That wasn't a border bill. When they wanted to build that border wall? 2028. They wanted more border agents, but they wanted desk people to sit behind a desk to help process more illegal aliens coming across into our country anywhere they wanted to. That's not what we need. We need that wall built. We need it built tomorrow. As a matter of fact, we don't even need that bill. We've got HR2 that's been sitting over there in the Senate since last May. And to talk about somebody that doesn't want to take a border policy and actually get that border fixed down there and close it, it's the Senate. The Senate's not doing anything. But beyond that, the Biden administration has the capability in the next 5 minutes to fix this problem. They could reinstitute the 8 executive orders that Donald Trump put in place that secured that border when he couldn't get the votes to get the border secured. And it's that easy. And if he doesn't understand, I've got them posted right outside my door in my office in Washington, D.C. They can go over there and take a picture of them and take it back to Biden, and he can fix this problem. But it's very easily fixable.
And so can you talk to me a little bit more about what other solutions you think should happen to combat this crisis? So you mentioned HR2, Mayorkas impeachment. What else are Republicans, and of course now your bill, the Laken Riley Act. So what else are Republicans championing when it comes to the border?
Well, we're going to keep moving with this Laken Riley, and we're not really finished there. This is just a start. There's also another part to this, and that's these NGOs that are picking up these people when they get into the United States and then moving them about, and they're doing it on grants, federal grants, and taxpayer money. And we need to look and see who that is. The way that you fix that, the way that you fix 99% of the problems that we have out here with the federal government is through our appropriation bills. And we have been asking and asking, let's get our appropriation bills done. Now we're here, 2024 is not finished. We need to finish 2024, jump on 2025. You know what? We're going to have a State of the Union address this week, and the White House hasn't even put out a budget this year. How do you have a State of the Union without a budget? I really don't care what their budget plans are. We need to kick our own budget out and start on appropriations. We start reining in some of this craziness that's going on in our federal agencies, all of them. And then you can tackle things like these NGOs. But if you ask me, some of them need to be held personally liable for what happened to people like Laken Riley. When you're out there moving people around and moving them across our country, and you don't care or you overlook who they really are, then that is your liability.
That's a good transition to my next question for you. Going to the news of the day, can you walk me through your thoughts on the new slate of government funding bills that were just released last night? And do you think they're going to be able to pass before the shutdown deadline? And overall, are you happy with the way that Speaker Johnson has been negotiating on behalf of the House Republicans?
Well, let's start with the speaker first, because Speaker Johnson, when he took the gig, he was already positioned behind the eight ball. You know, I understand that he didn't have a clear shot, and so he's had to take a couple of shots just to get into position. I know that he's had to push some CRs. I don't like CRs. Didn't support any of them. Didn't vote for them. I knew that the Democrats would pick it up because that's their policy. We've got to do whatever we can do to finish up 2024. Me personally, I would love to have those appropriation bills done. We get them done, get them out, get them over to the Senate, where those folks may go to work at some point, and then we start focusing on 2025.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. That's the end of my questions. Is there anything else about the Laken Riley Act, the border, or appropriations that we didn't get to touch on yet?
No, you know what? I appreciate you reaching out just on the Laken Riley Act. You know, it's really hit home with so many people down here. So,
Yeah, well, I look forward to seeing the legislation on the floor later this week.
well, thank you. Thank you for having me on.